안녕하세요. 라디오코리아 보도이사 원영석입니다.
Hello, thank you for coming to Culture Shock. I'm Young Kim.
I'm Michael Wan, news director for Radio Korea as well.
네, 제가 원래 그 한국어로 우리가 하는데 오늘은 특별하게 이렇게 영어로 하겠습니다.
예.
영어 게스트가 있어가지고.
네. 오늘 손님은 이제 그 덕킴이라고 사실 트위터 많이 하시는 분들은 어쩌면 알 수도 있습니다. 왜냐면은 한인 사회, 아시안 사회 그 2세들 사이에서는 어느 정도 좀 알려진 분이고 이분이 또 이제 연예인 출신이고 한국 뉴스에도 사실 나왔어요. 한인 언론. 제가 기억이 나요. 2006년이었던 걸로 기억합니다.
So
그때 포커
2006, 2006. He was
right?
a poker
That's correct,
champion.
right? 포커
Not a champion.
포커
Champion?
6위.
Not,
number 6,
seventh
right?
in the-
number 7,
in
yeah.
the main event of the World
그걸로
Series of
이제
So I mean, this is a nationwide thing, right?
Yeah, I mean,
World
it's-
Cup. I mean, World Series, right?
It's a
Of
thing
poker.
that poker players created in Las Vegas, but yes, they call it the World Series of Poker.
So
now.
out of how many people were you number 7?
That year there were 8,700
What?
entries.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, ESPN, right? You were
Yeah,
on ESPN.
so that's still the largest one,
He
but
hit
yeah,
number.
that was
He hit number
17 years
number,
ago.
Yeah, you said number 7. You said.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that hit the news cycle here.
Yeah.
So I think that's.
Korean magazine had me on, and so I think I was in the a Korean.
How did you get into poker? Like, I mean, how long have you been playing poker?
Probably seriously since 2002. So I was in high school, but though I had a friend who was a year ahead of me, and he had gone to college, and I think during that time in the early 2000s there was a huge excitement over poker, and so he came back and he was like, "Oh, I got to teach you this game. It's like you can win money." And it's funny because I grew up in the Korean traditional Korean Christian household.
So you played Ghost Stop.
Oh no! But
You're saying a
I
very
did see-
conservative household
I'm saying,
where
yeah.
those things are a
No
little bit
gambling,
taboo, right?
Yeah.
No gambling and all that kind of
Exactly.
stuff.
So
But that's exactly the reason why you did it, I think.
no,
Because
it's
you were
actually
prohibited
like
to play
in the
that.
beginning. I was like, no, you can't do that. You're just gonna lose all your money. Well,
Yeah,
'cause I
yeah,
already
that's
had these,
me,
like,
that's me,
conceptions
yeah.
of like, oh, that's what
Yeah.
gambling is. You just lose your money.
They
But
say
then-
that poker's not gambling.
So poker is gambling, but it is a gambling skill game.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of like, it's like kind of akin to the stock market or any markets. It's like, yes, that could be gambling too if you don't know what you're doing. But if you do know what you're doing, you have an edge over the rest of the market, and you can make more money.
A good chance to win, right?
Yeah, it is gambling, but you give yourself a better chance to win than your opponent.
And you also can fold. I mean, so without putting in after your ante, without putting in like pots and pots of money, you could just fold and then move on to the next one, right?
Right.
I
So
mean,
that's part of the strategy.
So
It's
you
like
have to have a
choosing
good
when
hand.
to fold, choosing when to bluff, choosing when to call. Those are all these decisions that can factor into your win rate.
so are you a 7 card or
I play the most
Texas Hold'em?
Yeah, the most popular variant.
So you continue to play to this day, right?
Yeah, but not seriously since probably 2016.
Oh, you don't play anymore?
I mean, it's not serious. It's money involved, right? It's
Yeah,
always
in
serious.
terms of like so I play, I guess, more recreational.
like not professionally. As in like in the circuit.
Professionally, it's more like when you're playing like every day or every week or something like that.
Has it gone down, the popularity of poker right now?
Oh,
is
for
it
sure.
gone down
Oh,
a little
really?
bit from the
I think like my when I got into it was like the golden era.
Yeah. It was have
like
TV shows everywhere,
It was
you know?
a combination of like 2003. I don't know if you know Chris Moneymaker.
No, I don't know anything about that. Yeah.
Okay, so in the World Series of Poker, in 2003, this guy named Chris Moneymaker, that was his actual name. He was an
Like
accountant.
real, like that's how is his birth name?
Yeah, that's his actual birth name.
Okay.
My name is Young Moneymaker.
But he was an amateur who won a seat on Poker Stars.
Yeah.
And he, this was all televised. And so on his way up, everyone who saw that was like, oh, this guy, he's an amateur. Anyone can win the World Series of Poker. So why don't I get into it? And so everyone got into like this online poker craze. Not only that, in 2003, they also made a change coincidentally at the same time. They made that, when you watch poker, you could see their hole cards.
Oh, yeah.
Before that 2003, you couldn't be able to do that.
Oh, really?
They would just show it like face
really?
down. And that's why nobody really
So
watched it.
you're kind of a part of the game in a way.
Exactly. So it was the first time people were playing along, and first time like they were seeing like
I
online
understand.
poker. It just caused what the poker player community.
And you're also watching and you're learning, so you're going, all right, let me go play that too. And then using those techniques that you saw, right?
Right, yeah. So then, I mean, I was introduced in 2002, but then, once I went to college at Duke from 2002 to 2006, that's when everyone wanted to play poker on campus. And especially after 2003, like, that's when it just kind of exploded.
And you won more than $2 million, right?
For the World Series of Poker, yeah, I won 2.4 million.
I lost 2 million won when I was playing poker last time.
Oh, that's what, $2,000? Right?
Yeah, about. Current exchange rate's a little different, but yeah.
Why do you think?
Amount.
Why do you think the heyday has passed by?
I think there's a variety of reasons. One is that the United States passed UIGEA in 2006, which is the Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act.
Oh, okay.
And then they kind of shut down poker sites in 2011. Poker Stars and Full Tilt Poker were no longer able to operate in the United States. So that was a big thing. And then I think just another thing over time, no matter what, was that, all this information that came out during the internet and internet poker, people were playing millions of hands. People could use statistical software to kind of derive theory out of it that they couldn't do previously.
Okay.
So how in the past, they used computers to beat chess champions, and recently they beat Lee Sedol.
Oh yeah. That's the AI thing, right?
Go.
Isidore.
Yeah, go.
Yeah. In the same way, computers are aiding people to find new theories about poker and new kind of efficient strategies and methods. And so because of that, it's become harder and harder to win money at poker because now everyone kind of has a better idea of what's going on, how to play. Mm-hmm. And so when the money pool decreases, the interest, decreases as well.
I understand. So you had to do something else then. What did you do afterwards? I mean, you were in the Wall Street too, right?
I was a management consultant. So in 2006, that's when I graduated from Duke. That's when the World Series also
Duke, wow.
Yeah, I was a economics major and a computer science minor. My parents think it's a disappointment. At the time, not now, but my parents thought it was a disappointment.
I want to meet your parents.
Were you angry?
I went to community college.
Were you angry about that when your parents were disappointed? Because your sister went to Harvard, right? That's why.
So that was kind of
your sister went to Harvard,
and you were considered the more smarter offspring of your parents.
Where did your parents
go? I guess you know my life story.
Where did your parents go?
Well, I know, but I think our audience don't, and I want to kind of
My dad
keep them
went
up
to
to
Seoul
speed.
National University.
Oh, they're elite. Okay.
Yeah.
Seoul National University. Your dad. Your dad went to Seoul
that's
National
elite
University,
too.
and mom went to Yuha.
His father went to the most elite, the number one school in Korea, and his mother went to the number one school for women in Korea.
Yeah, so then I grew up in Westchester County, and I think we went to a church where there were a lot of his SNU kind of alumni who went there. So there was a lot of I guess, I would call New York, the metropolis area, one of the most competitive regions in terms of academics.
Really?
In the country.
Wow.
Just because they have all the rich kind of Jewish and Asian people kind of gathered in one place.
So did they always say 공부 to you? Your parents? 공부해.
Yeah.
Study all the time?
I mean, they didn't say that outright. They just certain times they use the carrot, certain times they use the stick, but just kind of any pretty strict Korean household, I suppose, in terms of
were you always better than your sister then academically? That's why.
No, actually. So my sister, I guess, we have different subjects that we're strong in. She's more of a language person and a visual art person. I was more of a math science oriented person. And I guess history as well.
Okay.
And I saw you playing violin and music. Were you serious about that too?
Unfortunately, I was.
You were.
It was just something that
you fit the quintessential mold of
typical Asian American.
The model Asian American. Play violin, go to Duke. Strict parents.
Also kind of it's. I feel like I'm somewhat of a paradox because yes, that is one part of me.
But you are self-made though. I mean,
in a way,
apart from the help that you had from your parents, as in the support for education.
Sure. I suppose so. Yes. In terms of the poker money, yes.
Yeah.
I don't depend on my parents for anything.
So when you look back at your childhood, are you angry about it or
Which part?
about
Strict
the
parents.
strict parents and going through the typical?
No, I'm not. I think my parents, and I think a lot of Korean parents, they're strict on their kids because they know that this is what it takes to survive in America, especially if you're Asian. You don't have the support networks of traditional Americans who've been here for generations. You have to kind of set kind of like a very strong foundation on which you can kind of live your life. And that does require strong academics that does in this country. Because Asian Americans, we're not really if we want to do blue collar work, for example, there a lot of the good paying blue collar work, they're very unionized and very kind of it's hard to get into that circle. So the best way, I think, for Asian Americans in general, especially when I was growing up, was to pursue academics aggressively. And so I don't fault them for any of what they did because I think it was necessary.
Do you think the Asians had to be a little bit obedient to the system and then not fighting back? I think that's kind of your narrative right now, right?
I think anyone in America, I don't think just Asian Americans, I think anyone in America has to work within the system.
Hey, Doug, do you agree that there's a bamboo ceiling?
In terms of you're gonna have to be a little bit more specific.
In careers, in jobs, in things like that. The Asian American history in America, it was turbulent. It was weird. Korean American history in LA, it was strange as well. But you see a lot of people getting into the workforce, but they're only able to get up to a certain amount or something. You hear that a lot. But I do also see a lot of CEOs and people in high places who are Asian American descent. But a lot of people would say that there is sort of an Asian bamboo ceiling for careers here where, it's a little bit more difficult for Asians to get jobs.
It's both kind of
in high places. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's both kind of like a cultural thing and kind of like a language thing. And, but there is definitely kind of a ceiling, so to speak. When you look at the numbers, especially in terms of tech companies, the percentage of engineers who are Asian, for example, but the percentage of people who are at the executive
level,
board members, right?
The disparity is immensely huge because there's a huge amount of engineer level kind of Asian American workers, but the amount of people who are more senior are kind of more white dominated.
Yeah. That's definite. Yeah. That's
so
definitely.
You think there is some kind of racism?
I think there
on,
is.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, the people calling the shots are the people who have the money, right? The VCs, the who are mostly run by white people.
And you said you never even thought about these things until pandemic hit? You didn't really seriously think about...
I thought about Asian American stuff and identity stuff based on my career in the entertainment industry. And in consulting and all that other stuff. But what I guess I didn't think about was more of the, socialism aspect of or historical aspect of everything. I kind of more was concerned with what was currently happening with the surface level kind of stuff that we were experiencing about being Asian American. But it wasn't until the pandemic when I kind of looked deep into kind of a rabbit hole of the American history and why the way things are the way they are until, that's when I started to look into it during the pandemic.
And you used to be a capitalist, right? Back in the day.
I mean...
The libertarian?
I wouldn't call myself
I mean, you're very political now, but back in the day...
You are political, right?
So we're just telling our audience. Because our audience don't know you.
Yes.
This is probably the first time they heard from you. So just to explain.
Yeah, I would say that I was definitely much more... I wouldn't call myself a capitalist, but I would say I was
American,
much more trustworthy of the American system, especially growing up. I was named Douglas MacArthur, for example.
Yeah.
After the Incheon Landing
General. After General MacArthur.
He is a legit considered a legit hero.
Yeah, many people consider him. I mean, South Korea considers him a huge hero, and that he should have took over North Korea. That's what many people think, and sometimes I think that way too. To be honest with you.
Yeah. So I mean,
China wouldn't have that.
Exactly
yeah.
Why
I mean, I think
I thought the same way growing up. Because, I was named after the guy. I was kind of like, in my opinion, a little bit of brainwashing, right? Like you're told as a kid, this is the guy that saved us from the Japanese. This is the guy that saved us from the crazy communists in the North. So I was like, at the time I was proud of it. I was like proud of being an American, proud of being named after the guy who saved us all, right? And so I grew up kind of really being interested in American history, and but kind of seeing it from a good angle rather than from a bad one. Like obviously in American history classes, they do tell you about like some of the quote unquote bad stuff, like the obvious stuff they can't hide, like slavery and the civil rights movement and all that stuff. But I think it was just kind of like the rationale I had at the time was like, every country kind of has their bad stuff that they do, and this is just history, and we're trying to progress to a brighter future. So I kind of bought the American dream and all that other stuff that I consider propaganda.
And isn't it more about survivor of the fittest? Anyway, they won a lot, right? I mean, so that's why people have to follow.
Yeah,
it wasn't like it wasn't like
all...
the option is there. Hey, you want to go left or you want to go right? It was kind of given to many Koreans living in South Korea.
Wait,
you know what I mean?
Explain that again. Like so.
No. I mean, it's like you. I don't understand why you're saying that MacArthur is bad, or you're that's where you're coming from, right? That he shouldn't have been there in the first place.
No,
right?
he grew up believing that.
No, I think
but
Doug is saying that America shouldn't have even been involved with Korea in the first place. Yes. But what I think is it's kind of unrealistic. I mean, that's what happened. That's what happened. I mean, how can you debate about something that already happened? We didn't know the end result. I mean, we're talking about we're talking about the end.
I can't change the event.
We're talking about the end result.
Yeah.
And by end result, I'm glad that I'm not born there, at North Korea.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
what I mean?
Looking at like what, obviously materially, for our material existence, yes, we would prefer to be born in America or Korea or South Korea than North Korea.
And that's where people are thankful to MacArthur. Yeah, I'm just saying,
Right,
yeah.
But then, the thing that people don't realize, though, is that in the first 2 decades after the Korean War, North Korea was actually prospering.
Yeah.
Over
without a doubt. Yeah, North Korea was doing better.
So then what do you say to those people?
GDP was higher.
In that 20 years, what do you say to those people who's like, MacArthur does suck in South Korea?
So you're talking about...
But hold on a second. You're basically saying, because the timeline favors me now, I retroactively think that was good.
But how can you? So we're talking about hypotheticals. How can you hypothetically say that would have worked?
Right.
If North Korea took over, that would have worked. Communism is a system to go with.
But your argument basically is saying my the rationale I use whether to say something is right or wrong is whether I materially benefit from it.
Yeah, but we can't know for sure whether that works or not, right?
But then you're saying that like that person in South Korea who says MacArthur is wrong in the 50s and 60s is now wrong because now you have benefited.
So
right?
I'm not.
Is he wrong?
Okay, so
in the 50s and 60s?
Doug, I know America is corrupt in a lot of ways.
Right, but I'm just trying to track your argument.
In a lot of ways.
Track your argument. What? Are you saying the person in the 50s and the 60s in South Korea who says MacArthur is wrong is wrong?
No, you can't see history that way. That's what I'm saying, because you don't know. Well, at that time, they don't have the 360 view of the whole.
Well, my 2 cents is what I heard was that you grew up believing that and Douglas MacArthur was this great hero and this and that. So to many people who are on this in South Korea and who've experienced that or even knows that history will say, if they love the capitalist country that Korea is, they will say that Douglas MacArthur is a hero. But some people on the other end of the aisle who do not believe in that may have a different opinion. That's how I heard it. Okay. But my question is this. Okay. So I understand that you are a strong proponent of the communist ideology.
Yes.
Right. Correct. So we are Marxist, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Marxist,
Leninist. We're talking about the pandemic. When the pandemic happened and the BLM protests were going on, like one thing I heard was that they have the Marxist ideology as well. And
BLM?
BLM, the leaders. Well, they're saying, okay, I don't know, but that's what they said in an interview. The BLM leader.
Who's saying that?
Oh,
The
it
BLM
was on their
leader.
website.
BLM.
I think it was on their website.
Appropriating
It was on their
Yeah.
website.
So she
too,
said,
right?
you know, we're all trained in Marxism and right? But from my perspective,
Initially, it was on their website. That's
okay.
But
Well,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was in an
Go ahead.
interview. I saw the interview.
No. I know they could say that, but I'm saying that they're not.
Okay, I understand. So my thing is that I grew up thinking that North Korea is a villain, that communism is bad, that every communist country is oppressive to its people, and that if you're a communist, then you need to get dragged out of here because you don't believe in freedom and this and that, right? That's what we're taught, right?
Yeah,
From an early age. And you can also say that that is brainwashing, okay? But we can also say that in North Korea, all the kids are being, brainwashed to, you know, respect or to worship, you know, the Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, and what was that?
Kim Jong-un.
Kim Jong-un, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm just coming up from the perspective of, I don't know nothing, you know? So I'm just I just know the way I lived, right?
Sure.
So explain that to me. Like how is it differ, or why is it better in your opinion, or why are you a proponent of it? Make me a communist is what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have to be
then-
persuasive about it.
Let's move from the DPRK to China.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So would you say that China, all those things you said about communism, that they're repressive, that they're brainwashed and whatever, does that carry from North Korea to China as well?
China has kind of opened up their economy, and I've actually been to China. I've been to Shijiazhuang. I've been to Beijing. And no, I didn't feel that it was like a total communist country. It was nothing like what the video footage that you see of North Korea. I mean, they had a good economy going. One thing that I did notice that there wasn't exactly freedom of movement as in like, you know, as we have here. We can move from state to state, just drive through, right? But you have to have like a certain permit over there. So they had to, at the borderline of one of the provinces, we had to like check permits and this and that. I had to get a permit in advance.
Like an inner...
I think so. It was like that, but it was in between provinces, right? But that part I kind of didn't understand because we all have such freedom to go to Hawaii, go to where we go to Korea, but I understand that there is like restriction there, you know? So these are, you know, that's just what I saw.
That wasn't during the pandemic, right?
No, this was way before.
This is true because I was there at Beijing in 2002, and then you know there was a Joseonjuk who guided us, and and she told the reality of the situation is you can't move around. And
by the way, I'm asking you these questions out of genuine curiosity.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So then China, you would say, is not the image that you thought it was.
No, I didn't really expect anything. I expected it to be just like any other country.
Okay,
and it wasn't. It was because
what were you told about China before you?
Nothing. I didn't really expect anything.
Wait, so you grew up in the United States, right?
Well, I was in Korea for the last 20 years.
Oh, but like where did you like grow up and like go to school?
Here.
Okay,
Here.
so then they didn't teach you anything about China, or you didn't have any inclination about China, or
I just knew that it was a communist country, and that was pretty much it, you know. And in Hong Kong was ruled by several years of I guess influence or rule by a democratic country, the British rule, right? And then it was going back to China, and they're all saying, oh, it's gonna be this oppressive, this and that. So you just hear that kind of stuff. So I'm just thinking, oh, maybe it is oppressive. But even when I went to China, that was already by the time when you see a lot of Chinese people go out after, you know, come to other countries and live. So I was like, I'm confused about China, to be honest with you. I really don't know what to expect about China.
Yeah. So I guess like what I'm saying or what I'm getting at is that you had a lot of conceptions about China before you went there, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
And would you say that some of those conceptions were dispelled when you went there?
Maybe up to a certain point. Yeah. It was dispelled. I thought it was just like Korea. Other than the fact that you can't move from province to province without a permit. That was the only thing that I noticed. I never thought it was oppressive. I ate at restaurants. They took my credit cards. You know, everything was pretty much the same as like anywhere else to me.
So I guess like what I'm getting at is that like China is communist. It does say that it's
CCP.
Yeah.
There are obviously material differences between China and the DPRK. I mean, China is obviously huge.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of territory.
Shanghai, you know, do you see how developed Shanghai is now?
So
I mean, economically, really different. Two different countries we're talking about.
Right.
North
There
Korea
are
and
two
China.
different countries,
They are,
right.
even though they might say it's communist, really different countries we're talking about.
So communism is like communism, not ideology. It's the final state in terms of like where people want to go to, where there does not need to be the existence of a state. But what I would say is that most countries that want to achieve communism first are socialist, and socialism is the intermediary step from capitalism, socialism to communism. Okay, so then both China and the DPRK technically are socialist at this time, and so this was like sorry, I'm kind of like freezing out, but this was like basically the conception of like the goal of communism. And so you can see that yes, they did open up, they did do the market reforms, but through those market reforms, China has grown its GDP from I don't know, like something like a few $100 billion in 1980.
That is a fact, yeah.
To $17 trillion today. And the only other country that has kind of had that much economic growth in that little time was the Soviet Union.
Oh, really?
In 1925 to 1945. Because after the Russian Revolution in 1917, Stalin took power in 25, and he was like, we are 50 to 100 years behind all these other countries in the West. We need to catch up. Because like he knew that there was this guy called Adolf Hitler on the rise, and that they probably needed to prepare for war. And so from 1925 to 1945, they become essentially from like almost like a third world country to like one of the most powerful countries in the world, second to the United States. And so I think people have this conception that like communism is this very like inefficient dictatorial system.
That's the thing, dictatorial. That's what I imagine. That's that you can't really say anything. There's no freedom of speech and things like that.
The thing about the DPRK is that it doesn't have as much. I'll use another term that you used, freedom of movement, right? Like it sits between China and South Korea, right?
Yeah.
The reason why you have to look at history, in my opinion, and that's why history I think is really important about the Korean War, for example, in order to answer this question, is that you have to ask the question: what was the United States' interest in the Asia Pacific region, really? It was obviously from the events that have unfolded since the Cold War, we see that it was to prevent communism from spreading around Asia, right? And so if that's true, they wanted Korea for to have a foothold onto the China, for
China, the bases,
right? Exactly. And so given that, they see South Korea kind of as their base to like attack or
other nations.
They say to defend against communism, but it really is to like maintain their military presence in there. And so when you see that, it's like the DPRK needs to have a strong military to defend that, because they are the buffer zone. They are the the
buffer state,
buffer state that like America is trying to like push through. And MacArthur tried to do that in the Korean War.
He tried to do it.
After they pushed back the initial offense to Busan, they pushed back past the 38th parallel, tried to go into the past the Yalu River to bait the Chinese,
and then the Chinese blocked that.
Chinese blocked that.
Yeah.
There's very strong indications that MacArthur wanted to start World War III in order to destroy the Soviet Union and destroy China, and to kind of like make himself the general of all generals.
So there's signs that he didn't want to stop there, that he wanted to go all the way.
It was more due to his, in my opinion,
ego,
due to his ego and ambition, rather than like to defend South Koreans or to defend South Korea. They did not care about South Koreans at all.
I will agree with you on that, because the UN, the reason that South Korea, there is a North Korea and a South Korea, that is because of the UN. It was a piece of land that they didn't really care about the people. They just said, okay, we'll just split it in half. You take half, we'll take half.
Well, MacArthur was persecuted pretty much politically here afterwards, I mean, because he wanted to go more. So, it wasn't like he was treated like a hero back then. That did happen.
I don't know.
He was treated as a hero when he came back.
But politically, he was really, he was persecuted.
Well, he made a lot of missteps. Yeah.
But I want to talk about like how America got involved in the first place. Didn't Japan attack America first? Isn't that how America got involved in the first place? It wasn't like they wanted to go there right off the bat.
We're talking about Korean War, right?
Pearl Harbor.
FDR wanted to go to war. It's just that he didn't have the buy-in of the Republicans. The Republicans actually were somewhat Nazi sympathizers at the time. If you look at John Foster Dulles's, I think he was a secretary or one of the Secretary of State or some of the people at the time, they were defending Nazi Germany.
You know, back then, New York Times and all these Time magazine, they pretty much had a nuance of supporting Hitler back then.
Yeah.
So it's not just, you know.
There was there was actually a rally in 1939 in Madison Square Garden where 20,000 people were like rallying for Nazis. This was, you know, 1930s.
So like slaughtering Jews and all that stuff.
I mean, mainstream media was
yeah.
for Hitler. I mean, without a doubt. Yeah, it was going on. Yeah.
FDR wanted to go to war to, you know, help England and France, but I think, you know, he was being blocked by the Republicans actually. And so there's speculation that Pearl Harbor was kind of like
an
inside job.
It could be. Now you are going into conspiracy theory territory. I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. I mean, there's a lot of studies about it, but anyway, we can't just. You don't know it for sure. You don't know 100% this. You know, they knew that they were going to.
I don't know for sure, but looking at the CIA, looking at the United States actions throughout history,
I have a lot of issues with CIA and FBI. They could have done what you have just said, but it's not acknowledged as official history. That you know, right?
I'll have to look into it more, but I think there is like high indications that they wanted to go to war.
I mean,
and that they were provoking Japan by blocking their oil resources. Because that's the main reason Japan wanted to go to war with America. They needed the oil to keep their war machine going. And so they saw America as impeding their efforts to do that. And so their strategy in destroying Pearl Harbor was that if they completely annihilate Pearl Harbor, the United States will have difficulty trying to fight in the Pacific since they won't have that base to go to.
So they don't have like a waypoint.
So they failed obviously in that strategy, and they also failed in realizing that America did have incentive to go to war.
Yeah. So Doug, are you going back to our discussion? Are you saying to all the South Koreans, you guys are wrong to enjoy being in
I'm not
South
saying
Korea?
that
You know that MacArthur won all that. You know what I mean?
lives.
Because I think every single person that I know of, I mean, probably few there are. I think they're happy that they're not born in North Korea. I mean, to be honest with you. You know, and isn't that a success in itself, regardless of the ideology? Okay, South Korea is not perfect. I'm not saying South Korea is very far from perfect. Actually, you know, there's a lot of horrendous thing going on there, and a lot of mental issues going on there too. But
so say
the totality of it.
Say you are an American. You are white American from the white, and you are now rich. You come from a wealthy family that has been wealthy for many generations, and you're like, slavery was pretty bad, and the economic conditions that America enjoys currently, exploits all these other countries. But isn't it good since I'm rich?
And what is South Korea exploiting? What is South Korea?
Honestly, Doug, though, I would probably be like, yeah, it's good. I'm rich, right?
Yeah,
but just being human, right?
That's fair. I'm just saying that's the same thing.
But as time does go on,
how could you say it's the same thing?
It is
having
the same
slavery
thing.
and South Korea.
You're saying that basically
South Korea enjoying their freedom. I mean,
you're essentially saying the material conditions dictate whether I think something is ethically or morally right.
No. I'm not saying
that.
No,
but you're right. On that point, no, I don't. I see a lot of things that are going on in the world that I disagree with that America does still.
Obviously, so I'm glad to have clothes, food, whatever, material, whatever, than possibly not having a lot of those things in North Korea. But that doesn't make me say that everything was great the way it happened because now I get the benefit.
No, I'm just saying that there's a big gap between ideology and reality. You know what I mean? And one of the reasons why I don't think communism work as well is I think people inherently, they want to live better than the other person, and I think communism is kind of suppressing that, right? That's what I think. I think that's human instinct, and it's just doesn't. It's not. What I'm saying is it doesn't go with our DNA.
I think it's human instinct to want to survive and live well, but I don't know if it's human instinct to want to do better than the other person.
Well, yeah, you're right. It could be intrinsic, or it could be something that is built from influence or watching things. For example, all the riches that we want, a lot of it actually come from watching TV shows or watching people that have these things enjoy a good time, influencers and stuff. But let's just hold that for a moment. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Duck Kim.
A씨가 문 옆에서 담배를 피우고 있네요. 담배 연기를 들이마시고 담배 연기를 내뱉고 담배 연기가 바람을 타고 여기저기 돌아다니고 있어요. 저기 누가 문 밖으로 걸어 나오고 있네요. 이런 담배 연기가 바람을 타고 얼굴로 향했어요. 담배 연기로 폐를 끼쳐 구박을 받고 미안해하는 A씨입니다. 다음 날인 오늘 역시 문 앞에서 담배를 피는 A씨. 어제 담배 연기를 온 얼굴에 맞았던 B씨를 보고는 문으로부터 멀리 달려가고 있어요. 참 잘했어요.
LA 카운티는 건물 정문과 출구 20피트 내에서의 흡연을 금지하고 있습니다. 내가 뱉은 담배 연기 내 눈앞에선 사라지지만 다른 사람에겐 피해가 됩니다. 간접 흡연에 피해를 주지 않는 시민이 되어주세요.
All right, welcome to this special edition of 문화충격 or Culture Shock. And we're with Doug Kim. Doug, you never got a chance to finish up what you were saying. I think we were all bringing up different points that, we've had in our hearts and our minds and what we hear from the media and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, explain the core ideology of the Marxist,
So Marxism comes from Marx's Capital, right? Mm-hmm. That was his seminal work, where he kind of doesn't even go into communism at all in Capital. He talks about the capitalist system in terms of how it works, how it extracts value from people, how like all this stuff makes it inefficient, leads to boom and bust cycles in the market, which lead to kind of either war or strife or famine or all these other disasters that happen from capitalist boom bust cycles. So as an economics major coming from Duke, I worked in finance as well as a management consultant. And I know people in finance. I know how they think, and I know how the financial system works. And a lot of it just kind of like made sense to me, like when I was reading this, because like really Capital is not really like a philosophical text, in my opinion. It's not really like a philosophical, or it's not even like a like an ideological text. It's, in my opinion, it's like an economic textbook. It's like saying this is what happens when this goes down and this goes down. And so that's what really appealed to me. And when I saw those examples that I talked about, the Soviet Union from 25 to 45 and China from like 79 to, now.
The economic booms you're talking about, right?
I'm like, these guys figured out something. Like, because there are gross inefficiencies within capitalism because of the competition that arise, and especially when they conglomerate into monopolies, right? I think everyone knows how monopolies are inefficient. And so when I saw this, and and in the past 5 years, I've been thinking about the monopoly stuff because like I was also an Andrew Yang proponent a few years ago about like automation,
universal
and all this
basic
other
income.
Stuff. So all this stuff started to just click and make sense to me. Like, and when I see China today, I'm just like, this is the way to go. Like they have not, like you said, they're making good relationships with other countries. They're not bombing them. They're not like trying to exploit them. They're trying to make trade agreements with them. They even like forgave some of the debt to African countries, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So they're actually trying to not only like better the lives of their own citizens, but they're also trying to help other countries. Like they made a train from Laos to China. Like the bullet train thing, they help their infrastructure with that. And, with BRICS, they're also helping these other countries, kind of developing countries with their own economies. And so when I see that, I'm just kind of like, wait, what's going on? The United States told me that China's oppressive. China's trying to take over the United States. China's trying to do all these other things. This is the inconsistencies. Maybe look deeper into kind of like what's actually going on here. What's actually going on here economically? And when I guess like it's too long to explain here today, but I guess like from my experience in economics and my experiences in history and learning all these other things, this is the conclusion that I came to.
Okay.
That, like, and not only that it's a better system, that like you said, I think I don't know if you said this on air or not, but you're saying that America is in decline, right?
Oh, you mean off the record we were talking? Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's all right.
No,
I mean,
it's
I
pretty
said
obvious
publicly
that it
too.
is.
I think it is in decline.
because when I came back to LA in 2017 and living about 5 or 6 years here, yeah, America is at a
Right.
decline. I'll tell you that right now.
The other thing about like the reason why I think communism is not only necessary, not only wanted but necessary, is that like without communism, if America continues down this path, I do think that we are headed for war, which could end up, annihilating the human race, in my opinion.
But
So I think
didn't
communism
China's
is-
economic rise happen because cooperation with America, in a way?
Yes, in a way.
Without America,
but-
I don't think China
but
would have
America also
risen.
benefited from that.
Well, you're
Of
talking
course,
about
America-
the financial crisis, right? 2008. Is that where isn't that where a lot
no.
of Chinese?
I think he's
No,
talking
I'm talking about the Deng Xiaoping
Oh.
reforms in the late 70s.
Okay, sorry.
So basically, after Mao Zedong
But the
died
real
in 76,
boom
yeah.
came out recently, and then the anti-China rhetoric didn't.
What do you mean the real recent boom?
Ever since WTO, they were welcome to the World Trade Organization.
When was that?
China, 92, right? So I
Yeah,
think that's
I mean,
when the
that's
real
30
boom
years
happened, and
ago.
then that's when Walmart started having a bunch of made in China products. It used to be made in Taiwan, but it became
But the
made
way
in
America
made in
makes
China.
its profits is that it exploits other places for cheaper labor and cheaper resources.
No,
China is relying on its own.
let me just finish my thought.
Okay.
So I think the anti-China rhetoric kind of happened in recent years, and it's more of a economic competitiveness out of because economically they see the rise of China like it used to be back when America had Cold War with Soviet
Yeah.
Union. Now it's more of a Cold War, economic Cold War, in my view, right now at this point between
that
America
was also,
and China.
I mean, that was an economic
Yeah,
war
yeah,
as
yeah,
well
but-
with the Soviet Union.
yeah, it was more of a military thing. I think that one, right? But anyway.
I mean, it was all faceted. It was
Yeah,
military,
and-
but
yeah.
the space program, for example, the United States didn't even have a space program until the Soviets had a space program. And so when the Soviets started to explore space, the United States were like, "Oh, well, we got to do."
Yeah,
the
but
same
how
thing
did
too.
Soviet Union collapse? Because of the buildup of the weapons. America just kept buying developing
There's a
weapons,
lot of
and
reasons for the
Soviet
collapse
Union
of the
couldn't
Soviet Union,
catch
but
up.
it's too
But
hard to go
but
into right now.
anyway, so let's talk about current events.
Wait, no.
Actually,
I wanted to say something. No, I respect your views and I understand what you
Sure.
pointed out about China doing good for other countries. But I see China as no different than America. They're territorial and they do want to expand also. They're trying to clearly
They're no
claims
different
into.
from America. Do you know when the last time China engaged in a military operation?
Okay, I understand. Okay, that's cool, right? But they still do want to go to Taiwan and they do want to do these things. And also, listen,
Taiwan is part of China, is it not?
how about
Okay, listen,
Tibet
listen.
then? How about Tibet? And-
I don't know how to say that.
Should America?
I don't know
should
where to
America
get-
Okay,
invade
no.
Hawaii?
No.
Since you
Hawaii wanted
since
to-
you brought that subject, how about Tibet and how about the organ
No,
harvesting?
Let me
issue?
just finish, you guys.
All right,
You guys just
go ahead,
gosh,
go
let me
ahead,
finish.
go ahead.
No, all right.
I feel like I'm.
This should be
one
this-
thing.
this
No,
should
no,
be like
I just want to throw this
like
in
a
there
3-hour
because when you look at East Asian history as well, China does overstep certain boundaries, just as Japan does when it comes to
Hold
claiming
on,
maritime.
Wait, are you
hold on, let me
equating
finish.
Japan?
Let me finish. Do you know that there's territorial disputes over like maritime property in Korea as well as in the Philippines, in Vietnam, and also in Japan in the East Sea as well? I'm just pointing out that it's not always cut and clear that they're trying to help, but they also have their
Sure,
self-interest,
yes.
and that's
I'm not
important.
saying China is this perfect utopia where everything goes
Far
right
from
and
it.
everyone-
Yeah, I just wanted to add
especially with
that.
the lockdown.
It's
I think it was
closer to
horrendous.
than this.
Then
country.
America? You really think so?
Yes.
Even though America's in
If I
decline,
could live in China, if somebody gave me the ability to speak Mandarin fluently and live in China, I would take it in.
Here's the first
because
one.
you
Ni
never
hao ma.
lived there before.
And my par- and
because
my
you
par-
never lived there
and my-
before.
no,
You would
I
probably
don't
have a
even have
different.
to live there
You would probably have a different idea after 5-6 years living
enough
there.
in America to understand what this country is.
Okay.
One thing is just
Doug,
I can't live in
think-
China because the air is just so bad. It's really
I mean,
bad.
Doug, I think you and I are in agreement that America is horrendous in a way. Yeah, I'm talking about politically. It's very rotten to the core, and especially with what's going on right now, the climate is really bad. And I mean, there's even like communist Trumpers. You were saying that they're not just there are people. There are people.
MAGA communists.
There are people.
MAGA communists?
No, these are people who are so disillusioned about the current system, the communists. I mean, that's why I think you became one too. And they would rather vote any outsider rather than right.
It's funny
the
because I was pretty
status quo.
apolitical. I was actually almost like slightly right leaning as growing up.
Yeah, I mean,
I
Christian
wasn't
family,
really too
right?
political, but yeah, I was like, it's funny because I grew up in a pretty liberal area in New York, but you know, growing up with Christian, you know, and whatever, you have like, I guess, conservative.
Yeah, that's
or
built
whatever.
into Christianity and religion in general.
Do you consider yourself you did a 180 now?
Well, I would consider myself. I don't subscribe to either party now.
Okay.
But yes, I guess yes, complete 180 because now I think
So among the
No,
American,
I understand.
Totally,
I
yeah.
really understand. I mean, you just want it to be fair. And also, you know, I was speaking to some other people before this interview, and the fact of the matter is that, in a way, you think like the regime has all the power and all the money, and they're just like passing it out to everyone. But kind of, it's the same way when it comes to like Amazon or some of the big conglomerates. I
Yeah.
mean, they're the ones that control the lawmakers to do their bidding. For example, TikTok, for example, right?
yeah. What do you think about it?
What do you think about what's
TikTok.
happening with TikTok?
I think it's a combination of things. I don't think it is what it is. I think it is.
Can you
a
kind of
lot
explain
do
to our audience a little bit because they might not know about
Oh,
it.
yeah, so-
there are 7 states going against TikTok right now. It's we are
That's
speaking,
right.
Basically, in the past few years, I guess the United States has been trying to debate whether it should or should not ban TikTok.
Well, they're actually trying to ban it now, right?
Yeah, which is a social media company, for those who don't know, that is highly popular with the American youth. I think it has like 150 million.
The most popular,
Daily active
the most popular
Yeah.
app. It is among the young,
Oh, is it?
among the
Seriously,
youth.
it's
It's the
100
most. It's not even close.
So it's
like
owned
4
by
times higher.
this
Yeah.
Chinese conglomerate called ByteDance.
Dance Byte.
ByteDance.
ByteDance.
is the parent company. I think.
Yeah,
it's the
yeah,
parent
it is.
company.
It is.
And recently, I guess their CEO, who was a Singaporean by the name of Shou Chi Yu or So Shou Chu or something, Shou
Okay,
Yi
yeah.
Chu, something like that. He went to Congress, kind of like in the same way Mark Zuckerberg did, like, you know, during 2018 or 2017 for the Cambridge Analytica stuff.
Yeah.
It was kind of the same kind of hearing where he was talking to senators about the nature of TikTok and its business and its data collection. And for me, I just think it's a couple of things. I think it's the tech companies like Facebook, like YouTube, you know, they see their profits being cut into.
Yeah, their advertising revenue,
You
right?
know, because like the engagement time in TikTok is so high.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
that,
true.
that they see them as competition. And so I think it recently came out that Facebook funded a GOP kind of like organization to kind of lobby for, you know, TikTok's ban. You know?
Usually, Facebook has been supportive more of Democrats, but on this one,
And
right? Somehow.
3 years ago, there was a
There's
hearing.
money involved.
There was a hearing with Chinese, like just China in general, with 4 CEOs from Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, and Google, right? And so they were talking like does China, the CCP kind of like control your, you know, do they steal American IP? Right? This was a question posed to all.
Whether
4
they
of these
spy
CEOs.
upon American citizens, right? I mean, to word it in a more
'Cause when I
easier
heard-
fashion,
So,
right?
hold on, I didn't finish.
Uh-huh.
But so all 4 CEOs kind of like said, no, they don't. But then Mark Zuckerberg on Facebook, he said, oh, I think it's well documented that the Chinese government steals IP, because they were talking about the ban at that time too. And then 2 days later, after that meeting or congressional meeting or whatever, Facebook comes out with Instagram Reels, which is basically a copy of TikTok's kind of like UI.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of like, you know, it's not hard to connect the dots that this very like tech company like
Is that how YouTube Shorts started too? Right, right afterwards, right? Pretty much, right? I think so.
Yeah.
But by the way,
YouTube Shorts was more recently.
Is it more recent?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. By the
But
way,
it's just kind of like the Toshiba thing in the 1980s, right? Like when Japanese manufacturing and Japanese like economy was like crushing, right?
they were
nerfed
crushing.
them.
You're right.
America nerfed them in the same way, or Xiaomi phones.
So it's
for
kind of
example.
like
what I think
sequel
it's-
of it, right?
This is what I think. It's part of their trade war with China. It's trying to push Chinese companies out from making profits.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I do.
Do you
so.
think that there is actually some data leakage that comes out there, or some
know
kind
what?
of
I-
sensitive data? Because all I see is a bunch of dances. You know, my kids are watching this stuff all the time, and it's just a bunch of kids dancing. I'm just like, what could be so dangerous about this?
So I think
Just IP?
So I think Facebook and American social media has been doing all the things that were documented. So I don't think it's to me it doesn't make sense. I think it's just about it's more.
You guys are agreeing?
I think it's more of an economic.
Wow.
I think they don't want to compete with TikTok.
The other thing is, like, when you
TikTok was
look at
beating Facebook, beating Instagram, and what are the other social networks?
I guess YouTube.
And because I asked around, I asked young people, and they were all saying, yeah, we do TikTok. They don't even do Facebook that much, and
That's
they
true.
don't
Yeah,
even
yeah,
Instagram.
dude. Like nobody does
and then
Facebook anymore.
There was a conference here in downtown LA about the new media, and the key point. It was a 4-day event. The key point is the future of journalism lies with TikTok. That was their. It wasn't a China conference, Chinese-led conference. It was an American,
Wait,
media
was this
conference. It was last year.
Yeah, so that's actually what I wanted to say too.
But now
I
it might
think
be
that's the
different,
second
though.
piece.
Now it might be different because the government is trying to ban TikTok, and I think they might be successful in it. To be honest
but
with you.
the second piece is what you just talked about. I think that for the first time, journalists could talk about all these things that are going on in France, in stuff like that weren't being censored by TikTok. But I think in every other social media company like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, they would censor that stuff by downranking a lot of that content because they would downranking it in the algorithms. But TikTok wasn't doing that.
They were not doing that.
In my opinion, the other reason the United States wants to ban TikTok is because TikTok is now being this open source where
without a
people
doubt.
can say stuff without being censored by Twitter or whatever by this downranking.
So non-censorship.
TikTok was not not censoring
Ironically
as
enough,
much.
they're saying that China
so
is
funny.
very censorship heavy, whatever.
Because Facebook and Facebook and Instagram,
Believe me, I know-
I can
believe me, I know
feel
that.
the suppression going on.
Yeah.
Like I can feel that
believe
every
me,
time I post
as
something.
As a YouTuber, I know that. YouTube was playing around with shadow banning people.
Oh, yeah,
Twitter was
exactly.
shadow banning people. Facebook
But
was
TikTok
shadow
doesn't
banning
do
people.
that.
TikTok did not do that, and I
Really?
I automatically thought TikTok would heavily shadow
I
ban
thought
people.
I thought
but
TikTok
I
would be
but I was getting conservative content out of TikTok. People were sending it to, and is this real? I couldn't believe it. How could a Chinese
Because the
company?
TikTok algorithm is optimized to kind of like show you what you want to see.
Wow.
But they do have some sorts of.
But it's
I
like
would
it's
say,
like
regulation,
Facebook
right?
and like Instagram, like the algorithm is set differently to show you what
the
you should
algorithm
see
is
or what you
optimized to kind of like
they want you to see.
target you to ads that they want you to see or content that drives you to certain ads. I think there was something where the Elon Musk came out with the Twitter algorithm and said that like they were downranking kind of like posts about the Ukraine war, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was because like apparently research showed that like if you show like something about war and an ad next to it, they're less likely to want to like click on the ad because
it's just all money.
Just don't want to see war content.
It's just all money.
But they still have their own kind of regulation, I would think. I don't know. No, you're saying no regulation.
or-
No, I'm talking about TikTok.
Oh yeah, I think they.
I bet
I mean,
they
there
do.
is
but
like
less,
you can't,
but less,
you can't, like,
less than
I've
Facebook.
used the platform. You can't do certain things like
Okay.
use abrasive language.
but do you find yourself, because you're an active social influencer, I would say, do you find TikTok less regulated?
Yes.
Honestly.
But in terms of like, I would say I dislike TikTok for different reasons. I think
You like
all-
Twitter
all
better
the
now?
answers that are going-
Since Elon Musk came into the picture, you like Twitter better, right?
Yeah. What are your thoughts about Elon Musk taking over Twitter and saying
No,
freedom?
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll
answer
finish
that.
my thought about
Oh, sorry.
TikTok
Go
first
ahead.
and then go into that.
Go ahead.
About TikTok, I think that while it is more open, I do agree that it's more open than Twitter or Facebook. I think that it's heavily youth driven. And
it is youth driven.
I do think that they have a lot of knowledge about certain topics, but I think their synthesis is pretty terrible a lot of the times. And so you might be getting a lot of open information, but you might be also getting a lot of crap thrown at you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I don't really like it that much, because like sometimes it's just like garbage information.
Hey, isn't Mark Zuckerberg your old buddy? What do you think about him? What do you think about him?
Wait, you guys
he's
know each
against
other like
TikTok.
personally?
He's
How about
against
New
TikTok.
York?
Yeah,
It's his buddy, you know?
We
I
used to
mean-
go to the same school system in New York. So
Oh, wow.
from we went to the same school from like 1st to 10th grade, and then he went to Exeter for his, the rest of his high school.
Yeah, so what do you think about it?
Wow.
I mean, him going against TikTok, and did you complain? I mean, you guys kind of text.
Hey, Mark, what are you doing,
Doug,
man?
didn't you say you kind of have some kind of still you have rapport with him and
I mean,
text?
we talk like maybe once a year at most. I haven't.
At a falling out?
I haven't. No, there's no falling out. It's just like I haven't seen him since 2011, like in person, and it's more not much of a falling out, more of just like a falling away rather. It's just like he's got his own stuff going on in Palo Alto, and I've got my own stuff going on in Los
Don't
Angeles.
dodge the question. So what do you think about it?
What do you think about what
What do you,
exactly?
no,
Mark
what do you think
Zuckerberg
about Mark
going against
Zuckerberg
TikTok?
going against
I mean,
TikTok?
obviously,
I mean,
Yeah,
why are you
there's-
dodging, man? I
You know,
think this
TikTok
is-
being a Chinese
I think this
company,
is not
I
the
think that's
Doug
what he's
that I
looking
know
for.
of. This is not the Doug that I see on Twitter. This is like the most
I think this is
moderated version
actually,
of Doug. I mean,
they all
did you-
warned me
did
about
you
you.
check
They were
out his
saying,
Twitter,
this guy's
man? If you go to his Twitter, you can see the real Doug. This
Well,
is
I
like
was told I couldn't
this is
say
like a
that.
very different kind of version of Doug we're seeing today.
But thank you for being this Doug.
Yeah, I was told
play
that
it.
I'm not allowed to be the regular Doug. But no, I guess okay. So if you want me to answer the question, yeah, obviously I don't like that he's doing it, but like I understand that he has a business to run and he probably has investors and whatever. It might not even be all his decision, right? Because he is beholden to his shareholders.
Sounds like defending him a little bit.
That was a good answer, though.
Okay,
that was a good answer.
Look, I
Now
understand-
tell him
Alright,
your
okay.
personal thoughts.
Fine.
That was
From
a
a
realistic.
strategic perspective, I'm gonna put myself in Mark's shoes, right? Like I've obviously spent
That was a good answer, really.
in the
Yeah,
past few
very
years,
political
Facebook
answer.
has declined a lot.
Yeah,
in terms
that's
of
true.
its
That's
business,
true.
and it has spent a lot of money on metaverse.
And he lost a lot of money on that. I mean,
yeah,
well, we
and-
don't know yet, but
Yeah.
No, I
so
mean,
far so bad.
Facebook has been taking a huge hit, Meta, by
Yeah.
TikTok.
Yeah,
without
that's
that, I mean,
huge.
really,
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
see young people they are doing TikTok.
So
man.
I think like his long-term strategy, he didn't expect to have his main like core businesses being threatened that much, and so like he probably expected that to be stable for him to develop the metaverse, which is going to be like a 5 to 10 year project.
Okay.
And so because of that, he thinks it's probably an existential threat to his business if TikTok survives.
okay.
So yes, while I understand it, obviously like I'm not happy with it. But I
You understand your
the
friend.
machinations
Okay.
behind it.
Okay, let's talk about current events just quickly. What do you think about what's going on in American politics right now? Trump being indicted, and then
there's a lot
and then
of
North
things that are
Korea
going
says U.S. South Korea drills push tension to brink of nuclear war. Those two. I want your take.
America and Trump. Is that the first one?
Yeah.
Trump indictment. What do you think is going to
You
happen?
have 2 minutes, by the way.
And can you also explain to our audience why some communist supports Trump too?
In 2 minutes? All that?
Oh, come on, go ahead.
Okay, so the Trump indictment first. I will say that what I think is going to happen is it's just going to be like a very long show thing, just like the Mueller investigation,
Russia
just
collusion.
like everything else before it. I think what it is just an attempt to destroy his credibility before the election.
That's what my wife said. That's so funny.
I don't think anything materially is going to happen from it. But in my opinion, it could have the opposite effect, like the Streisand effect of like of
Build him up.
building him up, and like like it's only going to make him more popular with his base.
You
right?
know, a lot of Korean-based media are reporting that right now.
Oh, what are they saying?
They're saying that this is actually gaining more, is helping him gain more followers and more
I
support.
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know one anti-Trumper. He became a pro-Trumper. Yeah, because of this. He said this is the last straw. But how about the?
I mean, I personally don't believe in American politics, but yeah. So to speak to the other point you asked about why communists are pro-Trump, there's a lot of Chinese people who are pro-Trump.
I know.
There
That
are a
is
lot of-
true. That is true. I saw them. Yeah.
There's a lot of also like China's people in China that are pro-Trump.
Oh, okay.
But the other thing is that like Trump represents a break from the establishment. He represents something that is anti-establishment. I think like for the longest time, both political parties represented like a dual-headed part of the establishment, and Trump is the only kind of like outsider. So that's why some communists gravitate towards him, because they see, oh, he's trying to call out the system. He's trying to like be against the system. And, yeah.
Okay, and can you talk about U.S. Korea drilling?
I think the United States is trying to prepare for war. They are preparing for
Against
war
who?
with China. And they see what's going on in Russia in the past year, and they want to amp up their aggression in the Pacific. And so they've been trying a lot of things with those drills as well. But also that recent thing where the disgraceful thing, in my opinion, of trying to wash over the comfort women crimes and cry in attempts to create a kind of like a bilateral like a agreement with Japan and South Korea.
There's a lot I want to say about that, but we're unfortunately out of time, Doug. You know, you're gonna be back, right? We're gonna have you back here, and then we'll continue that conversation.
Enjoyed it
Doug.
today?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy yourself?
It's fun.
Okay.
You know, it was great. I loved it, man. Thank you so much for being here, Doug.
Thank you for having
Thanks,
me.
Doug.
That was a pretty interesting conversation. I really enjoyed that.
I loved it too. You know, I mean, I love bringing different point of views.
That's
and
right.
I think that's what Doug brought with him. And hopefully our audience got to know a little bit more about something rather than just following the mainstream narrative.
That's right.
That was our purpose.
We'll have Doug back in the future, and thank you for joining us on Culture Shock today. We'll be back here on Monday. Thank you
very much.